The excitement's building, there's no doubt about that. You can feel it in the air here around the first game in Sri Lanka against UAE. And I think everybody's just waiting to find out how quickly they can hit their straps. There's be a lot of uncertainty in the camps. Nobody will know exactly what to expect. But what I expect is that, as in all rugby, it evolves so quickly at the top end of the game. I expect the performance of these teams to move on. I think, to be brutally honest, the professional side, the fully professional side, Japan, has an advantage the longer the tournament goes on. But at the start of the tournament, the other teams come in with so much enthusiasm that they can be a handful for even the likes of Japan. So what I'm expecting tomorrow is a really tough contest. I think the first 20 minutes will be absolutely critical. It'll be a battle for supremacy in the first 20 minutes. I think if Sri Lanka get on top in the first 20 minutes, they've got a shout, but I think if they fail to get on top in the first 20 with a lack of match fitness that they've got, they could struggle. I think ultimately there's only going to be one winner, and that's Japan, but it'll be really tight for the other spots. I think that's actually one of the benefits of the divisional structure. Most of the games are pretty close. Occasionally a side like China last year went into free fall a bit and they struggled at the level they were operating. And other teams like Malaysia, I know, have pushed through really quickly through 2 or 3 divisions. But I think that's pretty much settled out, and I think the teams have found their levels, and you end up getting some really close, exciting contests as a result. There's no doubt that Korea don't belong there. I think it was a big surprise that they were relegated last year, but that was a reflection on the progress that the other teams had made. They caught up with Korea. I think Korea needs to have a good look at itself and how it prepares for international rugby, because there's no doubt that they have the potential to be back in the top 5 and possibly challenging the likes of the Japanese at that end. So they would be hot favourites for that division, I would say, especially playing all the games at home. But yeah, the Philippines were a surprise. I was really impressed with them last year. They've gone down a different route. Some of the countries have chose to go down the passport holders route, indigenous players only. The Philippines have got a shed load of Philippine qualified, legitimately qualified players, but they play most of the rugby in Australia or the UK, and they were hot at Division 2 level last year, and I expect them to go well this year, but I hear they haven't started their preparations too well. I believe Hong Kong beat them quite handsomely in a warm-up game. I think they've obviously been enormously important in the restructuring of the tournament. I think this is now the 4th year in the current structure, and I think it has been hugely inspirational for rugby in Asia. I think it's become a centrepiece of the game, and the potential for growth, of course, in Asia is enormous. But I also like the way HSBC insist on working with disadvantaged kids during the course of the week, and we've already been to the SOS Village orphanage this week. I'm expecting to go to 2 or 3 more of these villages as we travel around Asia. But I think that side of it's really important, and I think the grassroots work that's going on in Sri Lanka, and HSB is pretty central to that, with the level of sponsorship they provide here on the ground in Sri Lanka. The grassroots work going on here is very impressive, and I think the potential for rugby development in Sri Lanka is enormous. It's perhaps a bit isolated from the rest of the world, but this tournament is the sort of thing that helps develop the game perhaps to a new level in a country that has such a history and tradition for the game as Sri Lanka. There's 2 real potential growth areas in the quality of these tournaments. One is, as you said, guys who are qualified to play for these countries will discover through the websites and due to the general media coverage that this tournament's now getting, that there is the potential to play international rugby, and really that is a huge aspiration for almost every rugby player, is to represent his country at international level. And that's the other side of the coin, is that the media coverage that this tournament is getting is encouraging the youngsters in the various countries, to aspire to play for their national team, and they can see a clear pathway for how they can get there. And of course, there's nothing more exciting than standing in front of a decent crowd, singing your national anthem and getting ready to do battle for your country. It really is what the game is all about, and I can't wait for it all to start.